The Murder of the Essex Boys, Blood and Betrayal is the latest documentary released based on the Essex Boys murders. In this video, I'm going to discuss my own thoughts regarding this documentary in particular, but mainly focus on 2 points that I don't particularly agree with, namely the telephone evidence and also the discussion regarding a potential eyewitness who may have seen the getaway vehicle on the night of the murders. Now, before we jump into the nuts and bolts of this particular episode, I just want to give you my overall thoughts on the documentary as a whole. I actually quite enjoyed it, to be perfectly honest. I was expecting there to be quite a lot of rehashed interviews or stuff that we had seen before, but there was certainly enough new content there, I believe personally, to warrant a watch. Now, I'll put the link to this documentary down in the comment section below, so do feel free to check that out at your leisure. But my own opinion was, yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It was good to see Craig Rolfe's brother giving some insight into his life and also the life of his brother Craig, and also some of the other characters who were involved in and around that scene during that time period. So the first point that I wish to discuss, or probably one of the points that I didn't agree with in the documentary, is regarding some of the evidence. Now, it was mentioned in the documentary that this case doesn't simply rely on the word of the getaway driver Darren Nichols. It wasn't just his word that convicted Michael Steele and Jack Wombs. Notably, a potential eyewitness who saw the getaway vehicle on the night of the murders. I'm going to quote directly from the documentary here. There was a girl who saw the Passat parked where Nichols said it was parked. This, by all accounts, confirms, or I guess tries to confirm, the story given by Darren Nichols in that he was driving a beige Volkswagen Passat and he had parked on Meadow Road. What we're going to do now, however, is go into the detail regarding this eyewitness account. I've actually got her statement to read out to you. And then I'm going to tell you why I don't believe that her evidence is particularly credible. So let's take a look at this potential eyewitness sighting and the police statement given by Sarah Earp. This was dated the 23rd of the 9th, 1996, and it states the following here. I live at the address Overleaf with my family, which is my parents and sisters. I've been asked by DC 744 Brown with regards to the Rettendon murders, which happened on Wednesday the 6th of the 12th 95 and Thursday the 7th of the 12th 95, specifically about a beige VW Passat. I can say that on Wednesday the 6th of the 12th 95, I was attending my college, which is the South East Essex College of Arts and Technology of London Road, Southend. I would have finished at around 17:30 that day, and it may have been earlier as I caught the bus to my home, which leaves Southend at 17:30. The journey to Rettendon takes about an hour to an hour and a quarter. The bus stop is by Oakdean Stores at the top of Rettendon Hill. I got off the bus and walked along the main road to Meadow Road. I believe I recall a beige coloured car, similar to a Vauxhall Astra, but slightly more squared off, and a white Ford Fiesta old type. And it's this next part of the statement that we really need to pay attention to here. So let's just take a look at where we are first of all. This is Meadow Road, and Sarah Earp is going to go on to mention numbers 2 and 2A. Now we know that this is number 2. I can't find where number 2A is, but you have to imagine it's in the vicinity somewhere of possibly this building here, or maybe even that house there. But we're looking at the very start here, aren't we, of Meadow Road. And it's really important that we remember where this eyewitness account actually took place. Let's now continue on with the rest of the statement by Sarah Earp. The beige car was parked closest to the main road, outside number 2A, and the white car was parked outside 2A and 2, and behind the beige car. I did not see anyone in the cars. I recall these facts as about this time there was a lot of problems with people parking in the road and causing problems. I can also recall that the night was very cold and dark, that on the Thursday it snowed quite heavily, and I believe this was the first snow of last year. Signed, Sarah Earp. Okay, so now we know where Sarah Earp saw this vehicle. It's important to go back and take a look at Darren Nichols' version of events, and I want to make this clear. This is Darren Nichols' witness statement under oath. This isn't my interpretation of what Darren Nichols has said or hasn't said. These are his exact words. And we need to see how credible this eyewitness account actually is. So let's take a look at what Darren Nichols states here. So he drops Jack Wombs off at the lane. Jack gets out of the vehicle with a bag and a coat. Darren Nichols then states that he pulls out of here, out of this lane, and heads towards the Wheatsheaf pub. So I'm going to paraphrase this part, and then I'm going to get into the actual dialogue and the actual written word of Darren Nichols. So he comes down here. He moves towards the Wheatsheaf pub car park. He pulls in here. It's at this point in time that he doesn't have a very good signal on his mobile phone, according to Darren Nichols. So he decides to move. He then pulls back onto the main road and he heads towards the lane. Now we're going to pick it up here with the exact wording of Darren Nichols' statement under oath. So we're going to pop it back here, where he drives back past the lane. Now, initially, he says the following. I went up the hill and took the first left turn. Now, many people remember another documentary which came out a few years ago now, which claimed that Darren Nichols was in the field watching the executions of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, and that he was on Rettendon Hill and this, that and the other. But clearly that isn't the case. When you take a look at Darren Nichols' own testimony, he didn't take the turning up to Rettendon Hall. So I would say that's most likely false. So let's just take a look at the first left turning. So he comes up the hill here. Now, if he had taken the first left, as I say, which I've just gone past conveniently, there we go. So let's just zoom out here a second. If he had have taken the first left, he would have ended up going up to Rettendon Hall, up to the houses there, which overlook the crime scene. That's where the Range Rover was discovered. This is Rettendon Hall. I've been up this road myself. It's like a single track road. And I simply don't believe that Darren Nichols came up here, parked the car, then stood in the field and watched the executions. Anyway, this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the eyewitness account given by Sarah Earp. So let's continue on with what Darren Nichols states. So he drives up the hill. We can see there's a hill here, so that makes perfect sense. And he takes the first turning on the left. So let's assume he means the first turning past the hill, which will be Meadow Road, the road where we've discussed Sarah Earp's eyewitness account. So he turns into Meadow Road, and I'm going to pick this up word for word. Darren Nichols' own statement given under oath. So let's take a look at what he says here. So he went up that road, he went up the hill, so he went past the lane and up the hill and took the first left turn. So this is Meadow Road. He's taken the first left turn, which according to him will be Meadow Road. I went up that road. So he's in Meadow Road. I went up that road. So he's gone up here. Gone up here. Turned around, which makes sense because it's a dead end here. I went up that road, turned around, and first left up there. So he can't go left if he's coming back down this way, otherwise he's going to end up in a ginormous field. So I'm assuming what he means here is that he's taken the first left off of the main road onto Meadow Road and the first left up there. So to me, he's gone up this road, turned around, and taken the first left up there. So the first left being this road here, which I'll try and get the name off here if I can just zoom in on the old street view. South View Road. So let's now assume that Darren Nichols has come off the main road. He's gone up that road, turned around, and taken the first left up there. Although that's on his right, it would be the first left coming in off the main road. So he's gone up here, so let's just now pick it up word for word again. I went up that road, turned around, and first left up there. Then came up and parked outside the first house on my left and waited for him to ring, as in Jack Womes. So he's gone up here and parked outside the first house on the left. So he's either come back up here, turned around and parked outside here, or he simply turned into here and parked at the first house on the left here. Most definitely not outside number 2 or number 2A. This part is completely irrelevant according to Darren Nichols' testimony under oath. Again, one more time, let's just clarify what Darren Nichols has stated here. I've gone up the hill, so he's gone up the hill past the lane obviously back here. He's gone up the hill and taken the first left, Meadow Road. Now he hasn't said, I've turned in to Meadow Road, I've taken the first left and parked outside the first house. That's not what he has said. Listen again to what he says. I went past the lane, up the hill, and took the first left turn. This is the turn, okay? went up that road, turned around. So he's turned around, so he's gone up there, went up that road, turned around, and first left up there. So there is no turning left here. So he must have meant first turning left after coming in off the main road. So he's gone up there, and he's parked on the first house on the left. So he either means this, he's gone up here and turned around and parked here on the left, or he's simply turned into this road and parked outside this house again on the left. Nowhere in his own words does he state that he pulls into Meadow Road and parks outside the first house on the left. That's not what takes place. So then again, that leads you to the question, doesn't it? How credible is the eyewitness account of Sarah Earp when she claims she saw a vehicle right here, right outside number 2 and number 2A? Yet Darren Nichols is claiming that he goes up this road, right to the end, or goes up the road and turns round, then parks on the first house on the left. He turns left again and parks on the left-hand side to the first house. So it's either this house or this house here, in my opinion. Certainly not parked down there. It's also worthy of mention regarding the statement of Sarah Earp that she doesn't notice anyone inside either of these two vehicles. Again, we can only go by what Darren Nichols has said. He claimed that he drove into Meadow Road and he parked outside one of the houses on the left-hand side, or his left-hand side. He doesn't mention at any point in time turning the vehicle off. He doesn't mention at any point in time exiting or leaving that vehicle. Yet Sarah Earp has seen a vehicle with its engine turned off, lights turned off, no occupants inside to the best of her knowledge, and in a completely different place to where Darren Nichols claims that he parked the VW Passat. Let's now take a look at a discussion in this documentary regarding the telephone evidence.
That phone had to make contact with the network, and that was how you get the physical geographical location of that phone at that time. And it would need a text message sent, it would need a phone call to be made or received, or it would need what's known as the handshake, whereby that phone would communicate with the network every now and then, even if it weren't actually in use, so that the network would know to which mast any call or text message had to be sent to be transmitted to the phone.
He was able to come back to me and say that the telephone of Michael Steele and the telephone of Jack Wones had been analysed for the day in question, and he produced a graph for me which showed early on the day of the murders the two mobile phones coming from North Essex and Suffolk, and as they travelled through the day they were pinging on the masts until they came together. Well, this obviously was crucial evidence, and it showed that the two people we thought were the murderers of this job were travelling at the same time but from different locations to the scene of the murder. And this ultimately proved to be evidence at the Old Bailey that they had difficulty in rebutting.
Another point which needs to be discussed is this discussion regarding the telephone evidence. Now, how many times have we gone through the telephone evidence, what it does show, what it can show, what it can't show? And yet here we have two individuals who clearly have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Colin Sutton and Inspector Dibbles. Neither of these two individuals have any expertise in terms of the telephone evidence. Many people will look at this and think, yeah, whoa, look at this. Got a graph, oh, look at it following the car. It's clever the way that they portray it, in that they've got this graph and it's almost as if they're following the car and they're tracking the movements here, there and everywhere. Many people who have followed my channel for some time will know that I'm very close with an individual who has a great deal of experience in telecoms. And this was his response to the clip that I've just played you from Inspector Dibley. No, he's actually making that up. Pinging, as mentioned in the above, is an operator function in real time where a signal is sent to the phone. The phone sends back multiple signals to various masts, and a triangulated calculation can be made using overlapping circles as to where the subject is at that time. It is done in real time, not retrospectively. none of what he's saying here is true either. The evidence was presented as CDR, call data records, from the billing, and only shows the masts that were attached to during the day when calls were sent or received. In the case of Womes, he was on Vodafone that could only log the outgoing call and not the inbound. The bloke is making stuff up. How many times when people create these documentaries or get involved in them, do they bring in these people that seem to, I don't know, pretend that they know what they're talking about when they clearly don't? The best way that I can describe the telephone evidence to anyone who may be new to this case is that when the call would make when the mobile phone would make a phone call, it would connect to the nearest mast. Now that nearest mast could be miles away, servicing an area of say 10 or 12 miles. There's no way of pinpointing where individuals were at certain times. Absolutely no way, shape or form. Yet you have these diagrams popping up on the screen as if they're tracking the car like some sort of bloody sci-fi movie or something, you know? This was 1995. And even now, in like cases in America with the Delphi case, they still have trouble identifying where people are at certain times using telephone data. It's not an exact science. You can't say this person was here right by this sign. This person was down the lane when he made this call. That is not how it works. It didn't work like that in 1995. So don't believe these diagrams that, you know, as if they're tracking this car and, well, Darren Nichols made a call and he was there. And look, Mick Steele's there and Jack Womes is down the lane. A complete load of crap. They couldn't tell that. They could simply say, okay, if a phone call was made from the lane, it would most likely connect to this mast. Depending on the traffic, the network at the time, if it was overloaded, it would then be routed to another mast. So again, it's not an exact science in terms of if he was standing here, he would have definitely connected to this mast or he would have definitely connected to that mast. Particularly, interestingly, where Workhouse Lane is concerned, because it was covered, I believe, by two different masts. So it could have connected to one or another depending on where this individual was at that certain time. So don't buy into this idea that they've used this scientific data and this, that and the other and they've pulled this from the phones. It's a complete load of rubbish. Again here, I'm just going to include a part from Mr. Roy regarding this telephone evidence and what he's just been shown. I've just shown him basically the two clips that I've played to you, and this is his expert opinion on the telephone data. So this should just give you a better understanding of what this data could tell the police and what it couldn't. And he said the following: very few people understand the technology. Without going into massive detail, there's mechanisms within the old phone networks that can give a more precise location under certain conditions and using certain data from the signalling channels of the network. We won't discuss these because they're moot points. Basically, not available to review. It needs to be in real time to exploit it. Again, as we discussed earlier, it can't be done retrospectively. If you're trying to track someone, you could possibly do it in real time, not with retrospective billing data, which is what the police had. Again, we continue on. It needs to be in real time to exploit, etc. The data that was used for the Essex Boys case was retrospective billing data, CDR call data records. All this information can give you is the mast that handled the call and not the location. In some cases, due to the network congestion, it may not even be the same antenna ID that processes the call for the billing. It gives an indication of where the subject may be relative to the mast. But if the mast covers a 120-degree geographical footprint over 10 to 15 kilometers, the subject could effectively be anywhere in that coverage area. So this is what I've said about the telephone evidence. If it connects to a mast, yes, he could be down Workhouse Lane. He could also be 5 miles away. He could also be 2 miles away. He could also be 7 miles away. It's not a pinpoint accurate system. So when they bring up these little graphs and diagrams and explanations as to, oh yeah, we tracked the phones and this, that and the other, and they met here and they met there, it's all based on the word of Darren Nichols. If you believe Darren Nichols' version of events, of course the telephone data is going to make sense. If you believe Darren Nichols' version of events. But again, it's quite interesting, really, when you look at the phone data. Because even though Darren Nichols may be telling some elements of truth, we don't actually know for sure that they ever went to the halfway house, that they met there. We don't actually know if they went to the other pub where they picked up Mick Steele's car and dropped Mick Steele off and this, that and the other. We don't know. We don't know exactly where these individuals were. And I think this is why I still find this case incredibly interesting. Because it's the phone data's only really relevant if you believe in the story of Darren Nichols. And even if, as I say, Darren Nichols is telling an element of truth, the locations that he has said that he's been to may not actually be the truth. We just don't know, do we? Anyway, hopefully that clears up the telephone evidence in any case. Anyway, do leave your own thoughts and theories down in the comments section below. Have you seen the documentary itself? As I said at the start of this video, I did enjoy watching it actually. I was quite surprised because I did expect to see quite a lot of rehashed interviews and interviews that we had heard before. But I do feel that there was enough new content and enough new interviews to certainly warrant a watch. You can get it on Amazon Video. That's where I rented it from. So do feel free to check it out. I will put a link to the documentary down in the comments section below. As always, many thanks for joining me for this video. I'll also put up the Essex Boys playlist in front of you if you wish to check out more videos based on this case. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all again for the next one. Take care. Cheers.